Yes, I signed my soul on the dotted line. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, Benjamin, Samson, and Canaan. All I get to hang out with, like single people would say, you got to babysit your kids. You only babysit other people's kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, your kids are your kids. That's
Oh,
what that's what they're there for. And your babies are existing. Your books, two of them. Is the second one I thought the second one was closer to completed. I thought we were.
well, it's no, I mean right now its second draft is done. I'm now in the phase of editing it, and I'm hoping to have it done and launched by Valentine's Day time, like mid-February. It takes time to birth a book.
Right, no, but I thought I thought I heard the pain or the pangs,
Yes.
as it were. I thought I was a part of. So find yourself culture is.
Yeah.
Are we labeling a culture? Like it's the find yourself culture.
Well, it's find your self culture is the label. Self hyphen culture. Bas-
Nice. Find
yeah, yeah,
yourself culture.
yeah.
So
Basically.
so so give me find myself culture. Find myself culture. So how am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to do that? I got so many things on my mind. How am
So
I
I'll tell you
supposed to
about
do
that.
that? Yeah.
Let
How?
me let me let me tell you about that. So um, we have a family culture that we grow up with, right?
Right.
And our family culture initially is all we know. It's what we see. It's what we what gets basically we metabolize that information as we grow up. Initially, completely unconsciously, and then later on, quite consciously, and we learn a bunch of beliefs, values, and patterns. And that's really what culture is. It's a sort of unspoken, unwritten set of values, patterns, and ways of being that are handed down generationally. And your family culture or our family culture is literally all we know. Sometimes it's working for us, and if it is, fantastic. But oftentimes it isn't. And so the family culture becomes the thing that many people that I see day in, day out in my office basically are trying to fit into, are trying to live up to, are trying to be like, but somehow they don't feel like it's working for them. And they end up with anxiety, depression, self doubt, self esteem problems. Perhaps the family culture had narcissism, mental illness, whatever it may be, or relationship patterns that were less than healthy, or basically patterns of behavior of how you treat yourself, that doesn't work, that is all about self-deprecation or something like that. So essentially finding your self culture is basically, really defining what Adam culture is, or what Victoria culture is, or what whomever's culture is, to really, really have the voice in your head, the instincts that come from you to be the loudest, and for you to be able to embrace that really, really strongly, so that you can really own, or a person can really own who they are, and take responsibility for their life, and really step into their adulthood in a really, really what I call selfie way, SELFY, not FIE like the kids taking pictures, but selfie way, which is, in my opinion, very different from, it's a made up word that I made up
Right.
when I was writing this book. And it's very different from selfishness, which people feel concerned that that's what it's going to be about. But no, it's the whole name of the game in finding your self culture is fill your own cup first, be very, very selfie about that, and then create an overflow and give to other people from that overflow, so that you're never giving from a place of resentment or from a place of feeling burnt out. You're giving from choice, and you're giving from a state of fullness. And that really is what my first book and the cornerstone of the work I do here in my office. And it is my experience that when people find their self culture in earnest, they really can move past depression, and they really have a sense of strength where they can move past anxiety as well, because they're no longer in a state of constant fear or worry or guilt about who they are.
Right. You see, a whack of things went through my head there. First, my sister went to college. She took women's studies, and then right after that, she was just smarter than everybody. And then she
Right.
decided that we as a family are a subculture, and
Yep.
that our family has dynamics that aren't actually realistic. They are
Uh,
ours and only ours, which I think
ah,
is what you just said to me.
yeah,
So,
totally.
yeah, right,
Totally.
right.
And
And
then
then
from all that, Adam,
go
from
ahead.
all that, just to quickly just add you a little sort of addendum to all that,
Yeah.
we develop from all of that when we're coming up a relationship culture. In other words, the way we conduct ourselves in our relationships becomes a culture unto itself, and we are either doomed to repeat what our family taught us in terms of relationships, or as we find our self culture, we have the opportunity to redefine in a very unique way what our relationship culture is, so we don't have to repeat the patterns of old if we don't choose to.
Right. And then my father takes over my brain and says, "This all sounds way too new agey."
Uh,
You know, I hear it. I hear his voice in my head. But then I'm like, okay, so is I mean, New Age was 20 years ago. So now 20 years ago, New Age is, I think, the holistic, doing things without medicines and doing it or natural way of some kind of natural path.
well,
Isn't that the body of the New Age movement? And if it isn't, I could be off. But I thought that was kind of the point of, stepping aside of what the norm says is supposed to be, and you can find other ways. And don't be upset that you're going outside of the medical field, even though it's now a medicine. It really is. You can get, your insurance will pay for you to go, have these things take place now. So is it New Age that just came to volition?
well, I really want to redefine the words, because number one, holistic doesn't mean necessarily new age or only natural. What it means is mind, body, spirit. Holistic means the entire human being is looked at. We're not just looking at what you feel. We're not just looking at what you think. We're not just looking at your physical body. We're looking at your whole person. Now, if that whole person is feeling suicidal, then you know what? You don't need a herb. You need to go and help yourself with something chemical to help save your life. Period.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
at all opposed to people saving their lives if they feel suicidal. Don't monkey around with natural if what we need is a true intervention. If you break your leg, you go to the doctor and the hospital and set your leg. You don't go to a Reiki person, right? So
Right.
I'm really quite realistic about these things. So this holistic doesn't mean just natural, it means whole human being, whole person,
Oh.
mind, body, spirit.
Well, if
Now,
that's not the clip, and there's two books on that, is the second book. So the first one, which I said wrong, of course, is Find Your Self Culture.
yeah,
And the second, does it have a working title?
the working title right now is rewire your relationship hyphen culture. Your rewire your relationship
Oh,
culture.
so a couple
And
scenario, or is it a relationship with anything or anyone, not just man, woman, woman,
it's
man, love?
taking us, well, no, it's taking us from gay or straight,
That's right.
from the dating world
Yes.
to, I love to do a premarital checklist, and I work with couples on that a lot to get them really on track to succeeding at their marriage.
Right, and you're
And then,
available to have people come and you can talk to them one on one, and you're available as a psychotherapist, as in a therapist as well. And this book's coming out in February, correct?
that's the plan. Yes, that's right. And essentially, the book has a lot of case studies and a lot of really useful, super practical tools to get you from either dating or premarital or marriage or healthy divorce, so that if you are breaking up, you can do it in a healthy way.
I think that's the best thing I've heard all week. I'm getting a little upset. I mean, I used to think, and I heard a comic make a joke about it: the 7-year itch, the 15-year worry, and now, since I'm kind of in this world of 18 years, people at 26 years are breaking up. Like
Yeah.
it's this crazy environment that the kids went away and I'm you know what, now I'm making stuff up, like I know every relationship, but people are breaking up after getting the gold watch, and you know. Did you have a call on that? Cuz you have a finger on the pulse of that. I mean, you're in a long-term relationship yourself.
Up over 20, like we've been together 24 years, married 19, so we're pretty solid. I'm all about long-term passionate relationships, and I feel that it is absolutely possible to attain and have a successful long-term passionate relationships if and only if people are in their adult balanced self. When we're in the child, we are impulsive, We are boredom averse. We are, and also when we're living sort of from the child perspective, we're totally operating from that family culture stuff, where we didn't grow out of it. And, often people will, feel like they've been hurt or they've been betrayed, and they play that stuff out in their marriages and in their long-term relationships. So I believe that to have a successful long-term passionate, and I do say passionate as a very key piece because I do believe that sexuality is very, very important in long-term relationships, and to keep that alive is something that couples need to make sure that they do. Um, what has to happen is both people need to grow up into their adult self so that they can be dealing authentically from their adult self culture, from person to person, not I'm a kid and she's my mother, or I'm a kid and he's my father, or, I'm playing out all my anger toward my father on my husband, or I'm playing out all my crap so it's all about working past that stuff.
Okay.
And
Okay. So, all
it's
right.
a
That's
solid,
great. No, that's actually that brings it together. I don't even. I came up with an idea that the age of consent shouldn't be for women; it should be for men. And for legally, a man shouldn't be allowed to have consent until he's 35.
well, you're not speaking craziness.
No,
The male brain does mature a little bit slower. And also, when the male brain is not fully matured, it tends to be much more impulsive and
right?
not consequences.
Yeah, I just heard recently that the brain, truly, the science broke it down 26 years. The male brain isn't fully functional until he's 26 years old, and then at 18
Okay.
we think we should be acting adult, and at 25 we can't believe we're not adults, and our brain is still accepting that that's not my mother, that's my girlfriend, that's not my father, that's my boss.
That's right. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
No, no, but it's a problem. And then you see this other side, just for because I'm in that headset. A kid that's sleeping 12 hours a day isn't a lazy teenager. He actually is growing, and it takes so much energy. In fact, he's actually growing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a
No,
parent, why are you so lazy? And now it's a science bit where, just like the brain, that's how it is. And now that we know these things, how do we make it better? Kids leave. My wife and I we're trying to get things we can do together that have nothing to do with the children,
yeah.
so we won't have the one thing I know that breaks people up, the empty nest syndrome.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I do believe that having a common interest, and they don't have to be like, I think it's really important for people to have individual interests. I think that strengthens a relationship, but also to make sure that there's a commonality. And that might be very simply, we like to cook together, we enjoy movies, we like to walk outside together. It doesn't have to be very elaborate. People sort of say, well, we got to golf together, we got to play tennis together. Well, if that works, great. But if it doesn't, just find small things that, and I do believe something I write about that's very important is people need to, on a daily basis, keep the connection alive through, listening to one another, not taking each other for granted, making sure that you touch a lot, that you are keeping those neural pathways of connection alive and well, day in, day out. And that will sustain you even more than a common activity.
There's only just so many things you can do in a day, and one of those things, I love the cup overfloweth scenario. That's how I know I'm an energy vampire. When I know I'm taking other people's wine and filling my cup, I can actually feel it. So I get it, and so now I understand. I'm always trying to come from a place. I find just coming from a positive place is filling my cup while I'm helping somebody else. It's
Mm-hmm.
not me taking their energy and just churning it back to them. So that helps me. So how do I sustain the relationship, but then really be focusing on the me culture? I call it that. I mean, you said to focus on yourself, but the me culture seems to be a problem with 2010 all the way through it. Everyone is like the selfie defines, not your selfie, but the actual
Yeah,
selfie
yeah, yeah, yeah.
defines a whole generation of people that are, I think, clearly missing the point of why we're all here.
No, I mean, listen, I do feel that you're right, that there's a lot of sort of narcissistic tendencies. But what I'm talking about and is, coupledom has to be this fine balancing act between, self care, self love, prioritizing yourself, self-value, but not to the exclusion of your partner. There has to be this coupling experience in your mind that says, I'm with this person, but I'm not with this person in a way that um, eclipses me, but there's room for both of us. And the togetherness is as important as the selfhood. And that's maybe a weird concept, but in practice, it works. I see people, for example, making sure that they do hobbies that they like on an individual level. Because if the person has no hobbies, all about the couple, all about the couple, all about the couple, people get resentful. And that's when the walls start to build. So it's really important that people say, take care of yourself, be responsible for your own joy and happiness, but at the same time, make sure you're spending good amounts of your time with your partner and complimenting each other and doing small acts of kindness and making sure that there's respect and a sense of consideration for the other person and a sense of really, really saying, you matter to me and I am not going to take you for granted in any way just because you're in my life every single day.
Right. Well, what do you think about couples after a certain amount of years together being allowed to take MDA together?
That's something I don't, that's whatever. You're obviously joking, right?
Well, I'm actually not.
Okay.
It's kind of a moment where I don't understand why people have to go out and find strangers, because that's kind of the me culture problem. There's part of the deal. But now that I found someone I want to settle down with,
Yeah.
and I'm over 18 and over 26, which makes me an adult in every frame. Why can't
Yeah.
I experience something with a loved one
Yeah.
why can't they be considered a marital aid? I think that's kind of what I was going around about, because you brought up that drugs are okay. And I've actually been put on a bunch of drugs over the course of the last 6 years. And
Medically, let's be clear about what drugs I say are okay. Like an antidepressant.
no, I'm talking about things that were given to me by people who have license to give me drugs. The first drug I take is marijuana, medical marijuana for pain. I take some kind of thing for epilepsy that's supposed to calm my mood. And he wanted me to be on 150 milligrams of these things, and I just kept locking my keys in the car. Whatever he was giving me, I said, this is too much. This is no good. And I said I'm still my go-to emotion in life, and I think I want it to be a subculture. I want it to be what you've just said. I would love it to be that, is worry. If my phone rings at 5 in the morning or 5 in the afternoon, I'm wondering who's dead, what's wrong. That was my go-to emotion. I gave myself a coping skill.
Yeah.
I begged for coping skills. Someone took away all my power. I got my power taken away from me, and then I noticed that I had a chink in my armor, and I had a problem. So I found myself going to someone to give me some help. So with that said, this mood disorder drug was on that I was on. Clearly, it was too much, or whatever it was, because I couldn't live. There's so many drugs to choose from. You don't know what the drug is for you, so you have to be on it for 2 months, so it goes into your bloodstream. Right. And sometimes the side effects are exactly what they're treating, so they're basically covering all their bases, saying, "Did it work? Didn't it work?" I don't know.
Right.
So I don't know, because you're someone.
What's your question?
Well, this is not a question; it's a conversation. You're saying if doctor prescribes, you actually said if you're feeling suicidal, it's going to save your life. That's actually how you preface drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, because I do have a lot of anecdotal, and I see this a lot in my office. Mild to medium depression, anxiety can be worked with very naturally with herbal supplements, amino acids, and through different breathing exercises. And I see it, and visualization, I see it working amazingly, and different dietary changes. But I do say that if someone is experiencing suicidal thoughts,
right.
I want to make sure that they understand that it's really important that first let's stabilize all the biochemistry in the brain. Right. And then, it doesn't mean it has to be forever. Then you can start to actually be able to process what therapy is actually doing. Because when you're in trauma, you can't process anything. So first we get you out of trauma, and the doctor will do that, and then you can do psychotherapy, and then sometimes what I see is that people get out of that suicidal place, and the doctor says, okay, we don't need to have those drugs because there's sexual side effects and all these other things.
Right.
And so let's see if the natural way, 5-HTP, fish oil, L-theanine, holy basil, and these things can assist. And my experience is that they really, really do assist, and they're really amazing.
Okay, so that's a natural way. Instead of taking
Yeah.
drugs and chemicals unless you are in a state where you need to be shocked back into or dealing with the
Come out of
tragedy.
trauma. Yeah, come out of trauma and be able to be receptive to therapy, psychotherapeutic analysis. Uh, Once that's done, then it's possible, with the permission, especially if a person has come from a suicidal place, then we work together, and then maybe natural is a good way, but first you got to get out of the trauma.
Right. Yeah, see, no, I can't even. Right. So for me, it's just I feel like I'm self-deserving, and something goes wrong, I want justice, and it gets out of hand too quickly. So now I'm on that and some Valium, and I don't know. I take too much Valium. I never remember falling asleep, but I remember waking up with I'm in the middle of an email. Like it's just what the. Anyway, there's some strong drugs out there to try and balance me out. So, as a worried human being, I wanted a coping skill, and I didn't get anything from the doctors around me. And then
Right.
finally, I was enough, and because I'm on these meds, and I thought being on the meds gave me the right. So someone says, "Why are you still yelling at me?" And I'm like, "Cause I'm on medication." Thinking the medication, gave me the license to act like me with
Right.
my like a not a nice person, and because I'm on the medication. So that's a mistake. That's not right. You need some coping skills. You
Yeah.
mentioned breathing exercises. You mentioned some natural supplements to help. These are the things that I wasn't offered, and this is what you're saying. So through your 80 videos that you have out there, or 800, there's got to be something that talks about how these are the places you can buy, or like, is it a prescription, like you take 5 tablets a day, or are they trying to tell you how many you need to take? Is that what you need to have a psychotherapist slash what do you call it, a healer? What would be the name you use for somebody who would say take fish oil?
Well, I mean, I've studied herbalism and supplements. I've done a lot of studying in that department, but a naturopath, absolutely. And essentially, you can get a lot of this in health food stores, but of course, I don't recommend, when you're trying to deal with mental health, and that people just self-medicate. It's all about education and doing it in a really informed and safe way, because even though they're natural, they are medicinal, right? Absolutely. But I think that the tools also, outside of all the supplements, the fastest, most important, and most simple way to bring a person's system from that fight flight, I'm in a fire, a saber-toothed tiger is running after me, that
Right.
kind of the biochemistry of trauma and stress, and where the cortisol, and the adrenaline are coursing through your system. The best way to transform that into the relaxation response is through slowing down. That's the first signal to the body that we are not at war, nothing dangerous is happening, is to impose slow breathing.
Hmm.
And so I do a lot of this sort of exercise where people are slowly inhaling for a count of 4 or 5, holding for a count of 4 or 5, and then really slowly exhaling for a count of 4 or 5. And then I have them increase that, as with a bit of practice, to 6, 6, and 6, and then 7, 7, and 7. That's really hard. 8, 8, and 8. People do it though. I do it. It's really hard, but it's really quite easy to just become good at that. Initially it's not easy, but then with a little practice, it gets easier and easier and easier. So that's the first line of defense.
That's funny, right? You got first line of defense. The cop's giving you a ticket, and you're breathing and counting.
Well, hopefully you're not doing it while you're driving. You can
No,
run.
while you're driving. Are your eyes closed during this breathing episode?
Yeah,
Oh.
exactly. So you can pull over and do it. But people sleeping, or people who have a lot of anxious thoughts. Because what's anxiety is a lot of, as you said, worry, future worry. Really catastrophizing thoughts that
Yeah.
everything's bad, everything's
Yeah.
terrible,
Yeah.
and you need to really, because the brain really does not differentiate between real or imagined in terms of the biochemistry that it produces.
Right.
So you have to keep suggesting to your brain that all is well, that you are safe. You have to
You're
keep.
so awesome. That's so awesome. No, because when I got to my psychiatrist, I said, listen, I came in here and I asked you for coping skills. I mean, I literally asked him for coping skills. I said, could you get any coping skills? And he goes, well, tell me about yourself. Well, the police got called 3 times. So what about your kids? Yeah, can I get a coping skill? No, how do your kids deal with this? Well, they know daddy's got a problem. So they're basically happy with daddy because daddy does a lot of things for me. He loves to hang out with his kids. Okay, great. Can I get a coping skill? So tell me about it. Work good? You keeping your job there? It's good. Listen, dude, can I get a coping skill? And then he said, I've had enough of you, and then wrote me a prescription.
Yeah.
So the coping skill that I gave myself was the phone's ringing. I'm telling myself bad things. I can write my own story. I'm gonna win the lottery. That's what that is. They're telling me I've won the lottery and why haven't I collect my prizes? Hello? Hi, it's your dad. Ah.
Yeah.
I wish it was the lottery. But is that okay? Is that a good coping skill, writing my own story? Because that's basically what I thought you just said. I was like, that's awesome, because that's what I picked up on my own, because I couldn't believe I'm doing this to myself. That's what's making, I'm very self-aware as a human being. I think the medication's making me really super realize the episodes. I want to call them manic episodes. I know you're talking on the depression side. When I'm depressed, I don't leave a room. And I'm not suicidal because I'm not leaving the room.
Right.
I don't, if I was, oh man, I could see how.
Just say that,
Go
can
ahead.
I just respond to your question or your
Yes,
thought about?
yes,
right,
please. By the way, to retort, this is a chat, not an interview. You're you're the most interesting person in a room when you're in the room, and so this was a conversation I wanted to have anyways. So I'm recording it so I can listen to it again.
Okay, but I just want to say to you about this notion of you writing your story.
Right.
Because studies show that people who experience post-traumatic stress, they've experienced trauma and then they have a recurring thinking about that trauma.
Right.
One of the most effective ways to start to neutralize that trauma is to write the story down and then to slowly tell it to people. Note the word slowly.
Right.
Slowly tell it to people, and then to have a compassionate, acknowledging witness is also really, really powerfully healing for people who have trauma and who have trauma responses like anxiety, worry, depression, all of those things. And so I'm really supporting your idea of writing your story down. That's really, really helpful.
Is it
keeping a journal
right.
really helps. Great tool.
Should you go outside of your marriage for that, so there's not that kind of stress when you're looking for a witness, like a witness to your life?
Definitely suggesting that partners need not be each other's therapists. Sometimes it's great to have the partner be the supporter, but we just don't want burnout to happen.
I didn't say therapist. I'm using your scenario, witness, to be your witness.
We want to make sure that it's done in a way that it doesn't burn anybody out.
Right.
So
yeah.
That's why a compassionate friend, maybe a group therapy situation, maybe, just someone who's like someone who's on the same journey as you kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, they have to have empathy, apathy, understand where you're coming from, sympathy. Yeah. My wife, when I did lose all my power, she just said, you need to see somebody now because I can't take this stress in my life.
Right.
Because it was too much. I couldn't handle it either. That's why I said yes to medication, which you would say there's no reason not to try the medication, but I probably have a better source of the same initiative that the doctor has if I was to take fish oils for my anxiety instead of epileptic seizure medication.
You'd never do it instead of, by the way, you could take, there's some studies suggest that fish oils actually make like an antidepressant work better, makes your brain more receptive to it. So fish oils are good, period.
Oh, fish oils are the only time fish oils ever talked to me about was like omega-3s. People are talking about the omega. Is that a thing?
Yeah, for sure. I really like a product called Omega Joy. Oh. So Omega Joy, which has a really good amount of well, I'm not going to complicate it, but there's these things called EPA and DHA. They've got really high levels of EPA, which helps to uplift your mood. So I really like, and it also takes out all the mercury because it goes through a bit of a process as well.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I've done a lot of these shows, and because less than 25% were women, I couldn't. It was making me feel bad. Honestly, but that's just part of my makeup, because
Right.
there are so many successful and interesting ladies. The problem is the name of the show, of course, is live from my bedroom with my kids. Doesn't make it better.
Right.
So it's a hard pitch for people. But it's just an open community show to open
Yeah.
up for people who are Canadians, helping Canadians for Canadians, and
Yeah.
people that, you took time to write a book, the birthing of a book. That's how you should call it that. These are your children. Never you mind. And you will take them that way until the end of time. So when I do meet people on this show and they are representing themselves as specifically a stand-up comedian,
Yeah.
I slow down the show and I turn it into, and I'm staring at my children when I'm really asking you this. How are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to have, is there a better way to ask that question so I don't sound, I've heard it back so many times that I really want to ask, instead of saying, listen, I know your business. I know it's extremely stressful. The people in your business sometimes aren't really showing their true self. It's mostly a facade. And you
Yeah.
think you need to be tragic to be humorous. But
Mhm.
truthfully, humor does come from tragedy, but you
Yeah.
don't really have to be living that life anymore. Richard Pryor did live in a brothel, you know. So the drugs made sense. His mother was a hooker. This
Yeah.
is a true story. This is a story you can't walk away from. So he did it very slowly on stage with curse words and made a career of it.
Yeah.
But the drugs didn't help, because everything he did, you had to try and hide from. I'm pretty sure a lot of things. But the Robin Williams is the one that I think is it's still a hard scenario, because anyone who ever met the man would say they met this very happy man, and we now know that that wasn't the truth. They met a facade. They met the shell of the man,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
man couldn't tell anybody who he really was except his acting. He can making people laugh, by the way, as a performer, I believe is easier than making people rather harder than making people cry in the
Yeah, I
grand
agree.
scheme of life. So, but he found those notes, to make people sad, and it came from a very authentic place. So if you could have a Robin Williams on the line, but you didn't know, and he's just, he's one of the people who are now a statistic. Let's just say Robin Williams was a gay dentist comedian. Right, I believe is the top of he's a gay nurse dentist comedian.
Right.
I think is the top 4 list of people who commit suicide. And he's on your line, and he's Robin Williams. How are you seems insufficient is what I'm saying. How do you show true care? People say, how are you all day long? That's why I have to slow it down and say, you said you're a comedian. So truly, how are you?
Well, I like truly, how are you? And I also like, something I say to people is, how are you experiencing your day right now?
Ooh.
It's, just,
That's very right now.
yeah,
So even if they had problems before, how are they coping with it just now?
just now, or, how have you been experiencing your week? What has your experience been over the past little while?
See, in casual conversation, the answer good, bad, or indifferent can come through. What I'm trying to get through is, normally the answer comes, it's like, I'm in a good place right now. Because when I settle it down, they really can hopefully understand that I'm talking to them, and I really want to know.
I want to say to them, I really am not just asking. I really, really want to hear how you're doing. I really want to know.
That's right. That's extremely authentic. That's right. That's exactly right. It's just basically we're normally having fun. Go ahead.
I don't know about you, but networking events tend to be a little unnerving for me because I don't do small talk that well. So I'm actually quite a shy person, even though I can be kind of extroverted in my demeanor. I'm actually kind of shy.
Right.
And so for me, it's like, I find a lot of networking events, which I get invited to a lot. It's like, I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to say? I want to talk about real shit,
Right?
My language.
No, that's CBC friendly. I can't believe it. You can be listening to the CBC at 2:00 and you can say that word all day long. And I let the kids say it on the radio. My wife is quite upset, and I said, well, then let the CBC stop.
Well, my apologies on the swearing, but
Did you
I
hear
want to
that,
talk.
kid? She apologized.
My apologies.
There you go.
So it's like sometimes I think real stuff doesn't. A lot of people are posturing and are kind of just bringing in their sort of game face, so to speak. But I think that there's a desert of people who are saying to people, "Hey, when I ask you how are you," and I tend to do that often, not always. Like I mean, because I don't ask the question "How are you" that often because I'm a therapist and I ask that all day. So when I'm in my downtime, I don't necessarily ask that. But if I really want to know, I say to people, "Listen, I really want to know how you're doing so you can tell me how you're doing. So that might be something for you to incorporate in
Yes,
your
no, I really want to know. So tell me how you're doing. How's your day going? How's this week? Are you in a good are you in a good place?
and
You know what I mean?
then you might add the I really am interested to know, you
Oh,
know.
well, didn't I just ask it? I mean, I mean, well, here we are. Where I can only have so many questions within a period of time, and my children have their shows. So I really do want to know. Oh, and it's only when people are representing themselves as stand-up comedians, truly, because everything else, people seem to find a balance in a life where one is your lifestyle.
Mm.
It's a choice. So I find that really interesting because you are, indirectly in the arts. You don't know it as a person who writes a book and then is capable of actually writing it. And your husband, who's also a cameraman and a videographer and a cinematographer who has stuff who was in the hot docs, and he's doing that all the time.
Yeah.
So, is there do you find, because it's a ladies only, and this is terrible for me, do you find that women support women? That's part of my ladies only scenario because I'm now reaching out specifically to the ladies. So I
Yeah.
want to know: do you find there's
Women
a
support
helping
women.
a helping hand in the last? Has it changed? Are women helping women? Is there something going on?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. I really hope so. I mean, I know that traditionally women are known to kind of be portrayed as competing and jealous of one another, but my experience is that women really do want other women to do well. And in cases where that's not happening, generally speaking, the person is feeling really insecure about themselves. So that can bring on some compassion as well. But in my experience, women do support women, and I've seen that in spades all over various tribes that I'm part of, and various communities that I'm part of. Um, I think it's the opposite of what people think. In fact,
Really, well, in a tribal situation, for sure, because you actually have a stipulation of elders and people are in a sequence. Oldest sibling, youngest sibling, they get certain just desserts. I mean, in a tribal situation, so that's different. But
when
when you're in the metropolitan area where
uh,
it's man eat man, dog eat dog, and now
yeah.
it's women are trying to feel you know, an aggressive woman, an aggressive man, a businesswoman, and a businessman. They're not given the same shake. It's not allowed. The woman.
I mean, I work with all kinds of people from all walks of life, corporate, etc., different. And I find that women in corporations, whether they be lawyers, but they band together. They do. I don't think that they're I don't hear a lot of women, looking to backstab other women. I think that that's a portrayal largely from possibly men. I could be wrong, but from possibly men.
Yeah, maybe. I would love that to be true, but I don't think so. You do maybe
I
it's
have
on the.
across the people that I work with and that I see and that I talk with and I facilitate talks and stuff. And I
Right.
I guess I see that. I see that women do support women.
No, I want that, and we're having like a director's chair for the women's director's chair for out there with Melissa DeMarco, who's a lady who's supporting my show, who I direct and write for, and I told her I was reaching out to you, so she wanted me to say hi and hope to see you this year, as well as I wanted to let you know that I didn't know what a mojito was until you invited me to your fancy party. I had no
Well,
idea. I did not know. I didn't even know the J was in that word. And and I would have called it a mojito for sure. There's no doubt in my mind. But you do throw a good party, and everyone that was there was clearly supportive. So it's important to have a support system around you, which you must have to be capable of 25 years of a forward moving success of building a better you and helping to build better others. Which it sounds like that's your goal.
I think that, yeah, I think that finding one's self culture essentially is not a selfish pursuit, because I believe that ultimately when you're happy within yourself, you will help the planet, and you'll do it from a non-resentful place.
Okay. And the lastly, not lastly, but in the same vein of, when does someone know that they need a private session versus having people shoulder to shoulder around them? And the reason I ask is because the psychiatrist handed me 5 pages of what he thought about me and what was going on, and at the
Yeah.
end of everything, it said he should be in some form of group. And I was like, okay, that's interesting, but it didn't say a why. And now I'm asking you, why is what why would someone need to be with you by themselves, and why would you say, I think I got 5 other people that you should be hanging out with when I do them?
I don't do group therapy, but yes, I know indeed I'm very familiar with that concept. But I would say that one on one is for some deep self exploration. What happened in your family of origin, in your family culture, what happened, and you need to really have the hour, I do hour and a half sessions where you're deeply exploring that. Once you've gone past it, I have suggested to people to do, 12 step or group therapy, because they've done a lot of that primary work, but now they want to kind of commune with other people doing that work, and that they can have conversations where they're also trying out their skills in terms of, like, in group therapy, you're basically having relationships, but they're not personal relationships, they're therapeutic relationships. So you get to try on different kinds of relationship skills, friendship, I'm not talking about love relationship, but just interpersonal skills. And I think that's it's helpful. And it also brings down a level of over self reflection where you're kind of like, okay, let me hear someone else's experience. And so I think it's really helpful, especially if someone, for example, came up in a super dysfunctional home, to hear other people who've gone through it can have a really healing effect.
So a chat with you one on one would be like, take that medication to kind of zone you and get you into that place where you're now thinking about it properly. Like, you need to have it settle down. You need to get the tragedy to the surface,
Mm.
and that
You need to
is
be
what.
heard. You need to be deeply heard, compassionately heard, by a therapist initially, I
So
think.
you become the witness,
In many ways, absolutely.
huh? So that's segregate. You can be the token mom or the token father or the token sister. Like, when someone's bearing something, you take it, instead of like, well, how does that make you feel? It's more like, well, keep going with that. Like, get it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never the token parent or sibling, but well, I'm definitely some.
I think I lost you.
Sorry, hello.
Yeah, I just lost you for half a second. You're
Okay,
definitely not the token parent. You're definitely not the
no,
token sibling. You're.
but I'm definitely the compassionate listener, the empathetic witness, and also the acknowledger. The acknowledger. It is so healing to feel acknowledged.
So you wouldn't let somebody push their emotions onto you. Like, you wouldn't be.
No, that would be transference, and that wouldn't work. It's
Right.
basically, I'm all about having people empower themselves. And really, 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 the best stuff is where I'm encouraging people to self care within the session and to reparent themselves within a session. And
So
I'm teaching them that.
and that is so all those would be considered the stem of a coping skill at some point. The
Yeah, we
you would
got to
say.
be our own parent. When we didn't get what we needed from our parents, we got to be our own parent. And that's such a
Oh,
wound, a gaping wound that is so hard to heal, but it does, as I said, the brain does not differentiate between real
really?
and imagined. So
Right.
you start to visualize yourself parenting yourself as a child when you didn't get what you needed, and it really can be incredibly transformational and healing.
Right. So you do writing for articles as well as your 2 books, one coming out in February.
Hmm.
You also do talks and seminars.
Yeah, absolutely. All kinds.
Okay, fair enough. And are you usually part of a panel, or is it you coming out as the? Because I don't know how it works out. Like,
Yeah.
you're not part of Fan Expo is what I'm trying to throw out there.
No, I mean, I've done a variety of workshops, seminars on anxiety. I did the Ultimate Anxiety Boot Camp, Anti-Anxiety Boot Camp. I've done, self-esteem workshops. I've worked with women who are looking to, you know, set goals and transform the reality they're in into something that they prefer. I mean, I've done just a variety of things. Right now, I'm kind of on hold with that because writing the book takes up a lot of my time. But
Right.
as soon as I go out of writing book, then I start to basically, do seminars and talks essentially where I'm referring to the book, and people can get the book at these talks and that kind of thing.
No, that's a great idea. Okay, so if we're trying to reach out to you and we want to find you, is it Vitalization Works? Is that would be you? Visualizationworks.com?
Yeah, visualizationworks.com is my main website, and everything emanates from there. You can find my YouTube channel, Ask Victoria. You can get my book there, Find Your Self Culture, but it all emanates from visualizationworks.com.
Okay, I know that to be true, like a vision board. You put everything you want on a board and look at it every day, and like things
Yeah,
you
and
actually.
use your mind. Use your mind to transform your thoughts.
Well, that's writing your own story. That's what it is. Tell yourself something else, and then it becomes true because your mind doesn't know the difference.
Right.
Wow. Okay. Thank you very much for confirming. My kids say thank you as they're being walked away from me because it is bedtime, and I kept them out late enough. So we got what we can reach out. Thank you very much for talking to me and chatting with me and my children. Much success, much love, and I hope to see you sooner than later. Say hey to Kevin for me.
I will. Thank you so much, Adam. This was a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Take care.
You too.
Theme song!
Yes, I signed my soul on the dotted line. Yes, I signed my soul on the dotted line.